Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just in the process of being reborn. Rumi wrote, "You were born with wings. Why do you prefer to crawl through life? But what if, even with wings, even after awakening, you still felt that invisible weight? To be existential void that no one sees, that absence that seems to scream in the silence of your soul. You've been through so much. You've cried in silence. You've walked away from everything that was superficial. You dived. He woke up. It opened your eyes to truths that previously scared you. You freed yourself from patterns, from loves that diminished you, from beliefs that chained you. And yet, to be inner emptiness remains, as if something was still missing, as if waking up had left you, even more alone. And now, you carry a new pain. No longer the pain of illusion, but the pain of spiritual lucidity, the pain of realizing that, after peeling back the layers, there's not much left. Just you, only the soul, just the echo. It's strange, isn't it? How awakening can be so beautiful, and at the same time so brutal. You expected peace, but he found silence. I expected fullness, but found empty. Maybe no one told you that true spiritual awakening does not come with emotional guarantees. He doesn't promise you immediate happiness nor constant fulfillment. Awakening is the breaking away from everything that was anesthesia. It's when you look inside and see the abyss. But here's the truth that almost no one dares to say. Waking up hurts, because what dies is not the body, it is the ego. And the ego screams, struggles, tries to convince you that you are missing something. But all you're missing is what was keeping you from being whole. This emptiness you feel now, it is not a mistake. It is the space left by the masks that have fallen. It is the echo of your soul in the process of reconstruction. It's the silence after the chaos, the sacred interval between who you were and who you are about to be born. What if I told you that this void is sacred, that he is not absence, but presence, the presence of the new, of what does not yet have form, of what is silently sprouting within you? But I understand. You feel like you're pulling away from people. That doesn't fit anymore, that nobody understands you. And maybe it's true, because now you have changed. And when the soul changes, the world around seems strange, offline, superficial. And then you ask yourself, did something go wrong? Is this emptiness a setback? Am I alone on this path? And this is where everything starts to reveal itself. Because the void, the very one you fear, could be the purest sign that you are finally awakening to your essence. You feel this way because now nothing fake satisfies you. No distractions fill you. No shallow love is enough for you. You want the real thing. You want the soul. You want the truth. But the truth, my love, is silent. And the silence seems empty, but it isn't. That's where everything changes. That's when you begin to see with the eyes of the soul, listening to what only the awakened heart can hear, feeling what can no longer be ignored. And maybe, just maybe, this emptiness you feel now be the exact place where the divine is trying to find you. But why does it still hurt? Why, even after awakening, does the silence still weigh? Have you ever wondered this? You donated yourself, you healed yourself, you moved away from what wasn't yours, and yet you feel like no one truly sees your soul, as if the world didn't follow his new vibe. It's not that you're failing. It's just that now you feel everything, even what I previously preferred to ignore. This emptiness, it is not absence. It's space. Space for the new, for what has not yet been born. And if you feel this way, is not alone. Comment here. The void also speaks to me. Let your heart be visible. Other souls will recognize themselves in your silence. If this touched you, leave your like. It's a small gesture, but it carries light. And if you want to continue this journey, sign up. The soul knows when it's time to stay. Have you ever felt that you have awakened spiritually? That you have awakened to profound truths? That you have begun to see the world with different eyes? As if, suddenly, everything that once made sense began to seem too small, too shallow, too noisy. And yet, inside what accompanies you is not a constant peace, but rather a dense silence, an echo that reverberates within your chest. Have you ever asked yourself, if I'm already awake, why do I still feel so alone? This question doesn't appear with words. It arises in the body, in empty days, in conversations that no longer touch you, in connections that seem to have lost their soul. It's as if you've stepped through an invisible portal and left everything behind. People, habits, illusions, but no one has stepped through with you. You stood there on the other side with an expanded consciousness and a heart that even awake still hurts. It is in this silent place that the invisible problem resides, because he doesn't scream, he doesn't bleed, he doesn't show himself. It just weighs. You feel out of place among those who are still asleep and those who pretend to be awake. You begin to realize that the world is numb, and you, now awake, feel everything more intensely, and the pain does not come from outside. It comes from contrast, from the abyss between what your soul already understands and what the world still insists on ignoring. This is the kind of loneliness that no one understands, because from the outside, everything seems to be fine. You read, meditate, search, take care of yourself, but inside, something is still missing. You wake up feeling like you have something important to live for, but you can't name what it is. You feel that life should be lighter, more meaningful, more connected to what is essential, but what you find are shallow relationships, empty words, distractions disguised as depth, and then you start blaming yourself. You start to think that maybe you did something wrong in this process, that perhaps the awakening was an illusion, that maybe I'm regressing, but no. You are not regressing. You're just cleaning. What you feel is not spiritual failure. It's mourning. I mourn for everything you left behind, for everything that is no longer you. And grief hurts, even when it is for your own liberation. This emptiness is not punishment. He is the silence after the storm, the moment when you finally hear yourself. And what you hear isn't pretty or light or magical. It's real. It's raw. It's not. And you. It's when you realize that true spirituality doesn't come with promises of constant happiness, but with the courage to be present, even when everything seems to be falling apart, because true spiritual awakening does not remove suffering. It removes denial. And when denial goes away, what remains is the truth. And the truth sometimes scares, especially when it reveals that, for a long time, you fed on illusions, and now everything that once fulfilled you no longer serves you. That's why waking up hurts, because you start to lose interest in conversations that used to excite you. Stay away from people who are still asleep. Feels misunderstood, lonely, sometimes even empty of itself. But this emptiness is fertile. This silence is fertile, because he is preparing you for something that can only be born when everything that was a lie is removed. That's when you start to rebuild yourself. But between the fall of the old and the birth of the new, there is emptiness. This space where nothing seems to happen, where time drags on, where the days are silent and you feel invisible. It is the desert of the soul, and going through it is part of the process. This is where you learn to walk in faith even without seeing, trusting even without feeling, to continue even without certainty. And this is exactly where many souls give up. They confuse emptiness with failure. They confuse silence with abandonment. They confuse space with solitude. But emptiness is not punishment. He is proof. He is healing. He is the soul breathing, finally, without the masks of the ego. You feel all this because you are truly alive, because your soul has begun to awaken. And now, everything that is not true within you is dying. And dying hurts, but it also liberates. If this describes you, if this silent pain also accompanies you, comment below. I am crossing the desert of the soul. This way, other souls who are also on this path will know that they are not alone. The emptiness after awakening is not a mistake. It's not a sign that you've regressed. It's not a flaw in your process. It's actually the purest sign that something within you is being dissolved. And this thing which has always accompanied you, which shaped your choices, which guided your fears, now needs to go. The emptiness you feel is the soul cleansing away everything that wasn't you. All the borrowed identities, all the expectations that were never yours, all the external voices you mistook for your own truth. It's as if, upon awakening, the light revealed not only the path, but also the shadows you carried without realizing it. Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters." And what he didn't tell you, but what your soul knows, is that this light sometimes reveals more than you'd like. It shows you the dark corners you've avoided looking at for so long. It shows you that the pain you feel today isn't new. It was always there, but hidden under the rush, under social masks, under relationships where you pretended to be less to fit in, to please, to avoid being left behind. But after the light enters, silence comes. A silence that isn't empty. It's space. A space that's been opened within you so something new can be born. But the new hasn't arrived yet. And it's in this interval, in this in-between, that the anguish of awakening resides. It's when you see clearly what you need to let go of, but you still don't know how to live without it. It's like crossing a bridge where you're no longer who you were, and you're not yet who you'll become. A spiritual limbo, an unknown territory where the only sound is your breathing trying to find meaning in the middle of nowhere. In this silence, what emerges is what has always been hidden. Old fears, unprocessed pain, traumas buried beneath the urgency to move forward. But now there's no running. Spiritual awakening allows no escape. It demands presence. And being present with what you've always avoided is terrifying. Because fear isn't in the world. Fear is within. It's the fear of existing fully, of being who you are without disguises, of seeing yourself without filters, of living without hiding behind roles. How many times have you molded yourself to be accepted? How many times have you silenced your own soul to fit into the heart of someone who never truly wanted to hear you? How many times have you forgotten yourself to try to save someone who didn't even want to be saved? All of this slowly broke you, but you didn't realize it, because you were distracted, trying to be strong, until the awakening came. And with it, the realization that you've lived so long outside of yourself that now returning is like inhabiting a foreign body, a body where everything hurts, where everything pulsates, where everything screams for authenticity. And do you know why it hurts so much? Because for the first time, you're feeling with your soul. You're no longer numb. You're no longer blind. You're no longer fooling yourself with cheap promises of happiness. Now you want the real. But the real, before being sweet, is bitter. Before being light, it's dense. Before bringing peace, it brings confrontation. And the first confrontation is always with yourself. Awakening confronts you with what you've spent your entire life avoiding. Your truth. And the truth hurts because it dismantles everything. It tears everything down. Nothing remains but the essential. And the essential sometimes is just you. With you. And that can be scary. Because we've learned to validate ourselves through others. To see ourselves through the reflection of others. To feel loved only when someone chooses us. But awakening comes and dismantles all that. It teaches you, harshly, that no one can give you what you still refuse to offer yourself. Presence. This is the spiritual root of your emptiness. It's your soul calling you back, telling you, stop running, stop trying to fill with the external what can only be welcomed internally. The pain you feel now is the pain of reconnection. And yes, reconnecting with your essence can be painful when you've spent years being anything but you. It's like turning on a bright light in a dark room. At first it stings, but then you begin to see. And what do you see? That the wound is still open, that the inner child still cries, that the traumas still breathe within you, and more, that you don't need to fight it. You just need to be there. Sit next to the pain. Listen. Allow it to exist. Because healing doesn't come from force. It comes from surrender. It comes from the moment you stop defending yourself and just feel, without guilt, without judgment, without rushing. The void isn't destroying you. It's opening you up. It's carving out space within you so your soul can finally blossom. But before it blossoms, it needs to cleanse. And cleaning hurts. Because in this process, you'll come face to face with everything that still needs to be addressed. You'll realize that much of what you thought was love was neediness. That much of what you called strength was escape. That much of what you defended was simply fear of losing control. But now you don't need that anymore. You're ready to exist fully, even if you don't know how yet, even if you're still learning to deal with this new you. Because yes, you are being reborn, and rebirth is always silent, solitary, but deeply true. If this makes sense to you, if this spiritual pain has also been knocking on your door lately, comment below. I'm coming back to myself. Maybe as you write this, something inside you will start to remember that you were never really lost. No one told you this, but now perhaps is the time to listen. The spiritual awakening that so many romanticize, that so many treat as reaching the top of a mountain, as if it were the end of a long pain, is not the end. It is the beginning. Not the beginning of a perfect light life full of clear answers, but the beginning of your true sacred solitude. And perhaps this is exactly what you are experiencing now and have not yet managed to understand. The pain you feel is not a relapse, not a spiritual failure. It is just the beginning. A beginning that no one warned you would be like this. A beginning where the ground disappears, where references crumble, where everything you believe to be certain vanishes into thin air, leaving you with the essential, and the essential sometimes is only silence. The emptiness that accompanies you isn't absence. It's space. A space created by the soul so the new you can emerge. But the new is still gestating, still forming. And in this gap between the old that died and the new that hasn't yet been born, there's discomfort, insecurity, the feeling of being lost, of not belonging anywhere, of no longer being who you were but also not knowing who you're becoming. This feeling is sacred, however disconcerting, because it cannot be rushed. It's like a dark night of the soul, a spiritual womb where everything is being reorganized. But this womb, contrary to what one might expect from a welcoming place, also presses, also squeezes, also provokes. It confronts us with everything that remains of our old identity. It forces us to detach from the last layers of the ego, the last masks of control, the last attempts to find validation outside. You feel this discomfort because you can no longer pretend. You can no longer smile in environments where your soul weeps. You can no longer fit into relationships where there is no depth. You can no longer tolerate empty conversations, noisy environments, shallow promises. And this is not spiritual arrogance. This is heightened sensitivity. This is your emotional system telling you that now only the real nourishes you. Only the essential nourishes you. Only what vibrates at the frequency of your soul reaches you. But until this newness begins to manifest, you must learn to walk with faith in the darkness, to trust this inner space even without guarantees, to allow this new self to emerge unhurriedly, without forcing, without comparing yourself. And this is perhaps the hardest part, enduring the empty space between what is no longer there and what is not yet. This space where everything seems stagnant, but inside, a revolution is happening. You feel more sensitive, more introspective, perhaps even more tired. And it's true, because the soul, when it begins to emerge, demands rest. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And to hear its whispers, you need silence. You need presence. You need to distance yourself from the world that wants to rush you, distract you, compare you, because what is being born within you cannot be rushed. It is too deep, it is too sacred, and everything sacred requires time. No one told you that upon awakening, you would lose interest in many things, that what once motivated you now seems irrelevant, that what once gave you pleasure now causes you discomfort, because you've changed, and everything around you begins to feel out of place. But you still try to maintain the old form because it's familiar. But what your soul wants isn't comfort, it's truth. And the truth, sometimes, frightens. It's at this point that you discover the hidden key, that which transforms, that which liberates, that which no one told you. The key lies in surrender. It lies in stopping fighting the void, in ceasing to see silence as absence, in accepting that the new will not come if you don't make space. And that space is exactly what you're feeling right now. The anguish you feel is a sign that the soul is rearranging everything. And rearranging is painful, because it requires you to give up even your spiritual certainties. It requires you to abandon even the idea of who you think you should be. The key is to let go, to no longer hold on to what no longer belongs to you, to allow everything that defined you to fall away, even without knowing what will take its place. The key is to trust this inner movement, to trust that the soul is not mistaken, that this silence that bothers you is in fact a fertile ground, that this discomfort that accompanies you is not a mistake. It is a symptom of expansion. You are growing, even if on the outside everything seems stagnant. You are changing, even if no one notices. You are coming home, even if the path seems dark. And maybe, just maybe, this emptiness you feel now is the loudest call your soul has ever made. A call for you to stop searching outside. A call for you to listen to yourself, to honor yourself, to allow yourself to be new, unhurried, unobtrusive, unmasked, because masks protect but they also imprison. And now you want to be free, free to feel, free to make mistakes, free to not know, free to start over. You are in transition. You are in the sacred interval between what was pain and what will be light. And in the meantime, the only invitation is, stay. Stay even without understanding. Stay even when afraid. Stay even when everything tells you to turn back. Because the new you can only be born if you remain in the silence that precedes it. If this key resonated with you, if this internal transition has also manifested in your soul, comment here. I am learning to remain silent. Someone reading this may feel seen for the first time. Maybe you went through this recently, or maybe you're still going through it, silently. You left someone, or someone left you. And even though you know deep down that that relationship no longer represented you, everything inside you still seems to have collapsed. You broke a cycle. You severed a bond. You decided to leave a space where you weren't seen, where you weren't heard, where you had to mold yourself every day to be accepted. Maybe you said enough for the first time. Maybe you chose yourself. But now, as silence fills the space once occupied by empty promises, by repeated conversations, by unmet expectations, what you feel isn't relief, it's grief. You feel like you've lost everything. Because yes, there's a deep pain that arises when you finally take a stand. When you say, I no longer accept less than I deserve. The world doesn't applaud you for it. Most of the time, it remains silent, and you find yourself dealing with the echo of your decision, facing days when your heart seems to beg to return, not because that place was good, but because it was familiar, because the unknown, the new, the space of silence and rebuilding, it's frightening. A lot. Before the noise of expectations filled you, you woke up to messages even if they were empty. You had someone to talk to, even if it wasn't a soulful conversation. You were seen by someone, even if it was a distorted version of who you tried to be to please. There was routine, there was movement, there was distraction. But now, all that exists is this thick silence, a void that seems to expand ever wider. And in this space that now opens up, you begin to confront questions you've long avoided. Who am I without this person? What's left of me now that I no longer have to play this role? What's it like to love without losing yourself? The truth is, you haven't lost everything. You've lost what was preventing you from seeing yourself. You've lost the broken mirror where you tried to recognize yourself. You've lost the distortion. And now, for the first time, you stand face to face with yourself. But looking at yourself without external validation is like relearning how to see. At first, everything seems blurry. You doubt your own strength. You believe that perhaps you demanded too much, that perhaps you shouldn't have left, that perhaps it would have been better to have stayed, even if you didn't feel whole. This is natural. The mind fears the new, and the heart, when still wounded, confuses attachment with love. You might be right there, at that stage where the pain of the breakup seems greater than the pain of staying. But that's because you're still shedding old layers, you're emotionally detoxing, you're turning inward. And turning inward requires courage, because within you are ruins and seeds. There's what's dead and what's yet to be born. And it takes time to recognize one and embrace the other. Sometimes it feels like no one understands. People tell you to move on, meet new people, distract yourself. But the soul doesn't want distraction. It wants presence. It wants mourning. It wants emotional digestion. Because only by digesting everything you've experienced will you be able to make room to experience something new with truth, with wholeness, with awareness. Otherwise, you'll just be repeating the same cycle in a new setting. And repeating yourself is no longer an option. You know this. Something inside you has changed. You can no longer fool yourself. You can no longer enter into relationships where you have to be silent, where you have to dim your light, where you have to beg for love. Awareness hurts, but it also heals, because it gives you choices. And now you are choosing yourself, even if you don't yet know how to love yourself the way you deserve. Just the fact that you no longer accept less is already the beginning of your rediscovery. Maybe you still look back with longing, and that's okay. Longing is part of life. Don't fight it. Longing is also a kind of purification. It's the soul retracing its steps, not to return, but to understand what it learned. The important thing is not to let this longing turn into a return to what hurt you, because those who truly loved you never asked you to devalue yourself, never made you doubt your worth, never confused you with emotional crumbs. True love requires no effort to feel. It's simple, even when it's deep. It's silent, even when it's intense. It doesn't hurt all the time. It doesn't make you question whether it's enough. What hurts now is the wound being cleaned. It's the need screaming, wanting quick relief. But healing doesn't happen in urgency. It happens in acceptance, in the day after day that you choose to be with yourself, even without having all the answers. You may be experiencing exactly this, a silent reconstruction. People look from the outside and don't notice. They think everything is fine. But only you know how much you're holding back to avoid going back. Only you know the effort it takes to remain true to your truth, even when it isolates you. Only you know the courage it took to say enough. And now, all your soul needs is time. Time to regroup. Time to remember who you are. Time to rebuild yourself. Not from fear, but from self-love. If you feel like you're on this journey, if you've recognized this place between the end and the beginning, comment here. I am rebuilding myself in silence. May this space be a refuge for those who are feeling too much and yet remain. You are not empty. You are free. This is perhaps one of the hardest truths to accept when you're in the middle of a journey, because spiritual freedom doesn't arrive as a gift wrapped in peace. It comes as a rupture. As a rupture, it destabilizes. It forces you to abandon what was comfortable. It tears you from the places where you pretended to feel good. The freedom of the soul will never be comfortable at first, because it is like a strong wind that knocks down everything that was fragile, everything that wasn't true, everything that was only standing through persistence and attachment. You are free, but you are still learning to live with that freedom. You still miss the chains because, strange as it may seem, the chains also offered a kind of security. You knew who you needed to be. You knew what to expect. You knew how far you could go. Now, with this new inner space, you face the unknown. And the unknown, even though it is the place of creation, is also the place where the ego despairs. Because the ego likes control, it likes certainty, it likes to feed on repetition, even if it is painful. But the soul doesn't. The soul wants expansion. It wants truth. It wants silence. It wants depth. And that's why everything fell apart. So you could be reborn, not as someone perfect, enlightened, or immune to pain, but as someone awakened, as someone whole, as someone who, even trembling inside, decides to remain where the soul can breathe. And in that place, the pain still exists, but it is sacred, because now it's no longer a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is healing. You are not lost. You are finding yourself. You are approaching your innermost truth. You are freeing yourself from the need to explain yourself, to justify yourself, to prove your worth. You are understanding, perhaps for the first time, that the value of a soul does not depend on the recognition of others but on your own ability to embrace yourself. The emptiness you feel is not abandonment. It is space created by the removal of everything that anesthetized you. It is the echo of your inner life pulsating again after so long dormant. Rumi said, "What you seek is seeking you." And that's exactly what's happening now. Everything you've spent your life searching for, love, belonging, peace, meaning, is trying to find you. But for that to happen, you had to stop running. Stop begging for affection. Stop putting yourself in situations where you had to beg for emotional scraps. You had to be alone. You had to enter that silent space where you could finally hear your own voice. The soul doesn't shout. It whispers. And only in silence can it be heard. Now you're more sensitive, more vulnerable. And that's a good sign. It means your defenses are falling, that your heart is feeling authentically again. It means you're more connected to your essence, even if you don't yet know how to express it to the world. And that's okay. There's no set script for this new stage. Each soul has its own time, its own rhythm, its own way of blossoming. The important thing is not to be so hard on yourself, not to judge yourself for still crying, for still missing someone, for still having days of discouragement. Emotional freedom isn't the absence of pain. It's being present with it. It's allowing it to exist without getting lost in it. It's becoming a witness to your own processes with love, patience, and compassion. And little by little, You realize that you're no longer the same person, that you no longer react the same way, that you no longer accept what you once did. And that's a shift in consciousness. You're leaving survival mode. You're beginning to exist from your soul. You're choosing what resonates with you, even if it costs you the approval of others. You're learning to say no without guilt. You're learning to say yes only to what expands you. And this selection is painful, yes, because in the process some people will walk away, some opportunities will disappear, some illusions will die. But what remains is true. What endures is you, whole, real, attuned to something greater than the ego can understand. You are becoming a home for yourself. You are discovering that you no longer need to lose yourself in others to feel loved. That true love begins when you see yourself with tenderness, when you look within and no longer find shame but acceptance, when your own presence becomes enough. Not because you are enough, no one is, but because now you belong to yourself. And belonging to yourself is the foundation of all spiritual freedom. It's not about isolating yourself. It's about never abandoning yourself again, never remaining silent, never betraying yourself again. From this point on, everything changes. Relationships change, dreams change. The way you walk changes, because now you no longer need to adapt to places that suffocate you. You no longer need to violate yourself to fit into spaces where your soul shrinks. You are free, and you are learning what to do with this freedom. This shift doesn't happen all at once. It's built day by day, with every choice, with every silence. In every moment you choose to stay with yourself, even when everything inside you screams for escape. And the most beautiful thing about all this, the more you honor yourself, the more you align with what truly belongs to you. What's yours finds its way. What's real recognizes you. What resonates with your soul finally begins to draw closer. If this process is happening to you, if this silent shift has transformed your way of existing in the world, comment here. I am becoming home to myself. Maybe someone is waiting for these words to feel like they are not alone on this journey. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you recognized this message. Your soul listened, and that is already sacred, because not many remain until the end of a journey like this. Most give up halfway. Most flee from silence. But you stayed. You felt it. You walked with me through every word, every layer, every unspoken truth. And that's why I now invite you to take the next step, not by impulse, but by conscious choice. If this video spoke to you, not just your mind but your heart, subscribe to the channel. Here, each video is a mirror of the soul, a place where what is unsaid can finally be heard. The journey doesn't end with awakening. It begins when you accept walking in the silence it leaves behind. If this video touched you in any way, please leave a like. This will help this message reach those who are still silent, but need to hear it. And now, if you'd like to continue this journey with me, the next video is already on your screen. Perhaps it will bring the next key your soul needs. Because here, nothing is by chance.